Some political giants leave a long shadow, a shadow that remains long after they're gone. One example is the Soviet Union, gone for 30 years and yet influencing modern-day politics. Case in point, the unrest in Kazakhstan. For years, this country was praised for its political stability. The leadership never changed, the people rarely revolted. But beneath this stability was an authoritarian regime. One president ruled Kazakhstan from 1990 to 2019. This man, Nursultan Nazarbayev, when he resigned, his hand-picked successor took over, the current president, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev. So while these pictures from Kazakhstan are rare, they should not be surprising. I could say the same about the Kazakh government's response, ruthless but not surprising. The protesters were demanding basic economic rights, mainly cheaper fuel. But guess how the president responded? He ordered his troops to shoot and kill.
Terrorists continue to damage public and private property and use weapons against citizens. I gave an order to law enforcement agencies and the army to shoot to kill without warning. There have been calls abroad for the parties to move the negotiations to a peaceful resolution of the problems. What nonsense! What kind of negotiations can there be with criminals, with murderers?
No room for interpretation there. The Kazakh president has made two things very clear. One, the protests will be crushed ruthlessly, and two, there will be no talks, no discussions or parley with the protesters. But about the long run, does Tokayev have a reform plan? Right now, it's all tokenism. He's fired the prime minister, he's fired the cabinet, he's also set a price cap on fuel. This cap will expire after 6 months. So stopgap measures, but nothing long term, nothing that would make Kazakhstan a more progressive, a more open democracy. What explains this stubbornness? Does the Kazakh president have a trump card? Well, he does. It's called Vladimir Putin. Around 2,500 Russian soldiers have been deployed in Kazakhstan. That is Tokayev's trump card. With Russia's help, the president can put down this unrest. Most Western nations have criticized the Russian intervention, but technically, it was requested by Kazakhstan. You see, both Kazakhstan and Russia are part of a security alliance. It's called CSTO, the Collective Security Treaty Organization, CSTO. Think of it as the NATO of Eurasia. It has 6 members. All of them are former Soviet states. If the US leads NATO, Russia leads the CSTO. Kazakhstan's president gave his quote-unquote special thanks to Vladimir Putin for sending soldiers. So far, this operation has been violent. At least 26 protesters killed, 1,000 wounded, 400 hospitalized, and 60 in intensive care, plus around 2,300 people detained. The government says it's mission accomplished. The streets are mostly peaceful now, and the protesters are starting to withdraw. But this unrest could be the start of something much bigger. Like I said, Kazakhstan was always the stable Soviet successor, so stable that it was often called sleepy. No protests, no leadership squabbles. All of this made it a good place to put your money. And that's what many countries did. In 2020, Kazakhstan got $161 billion in foreign investment, $161 billion, mostly oil and gas. Out of this, $30 billion came from the United States. Needless to say, Russia is not happy. Putin fears that he will lose another former Soviet state to the West. Why do I say another? Because this is exactly what happened in Ukraine. Until 2014, Ukraine was ruled by a pro-Russian president. In 2030, he even rejected greater integration with the European Union. His people revolted. 1 year later, he was removed from office. And everyone knows what happened next. Russia annexed Crimea. And Ukraine continues to be ruled by pro-Western leaders. Something similar almost happened in Belarus. You might remember the protests from last year. Same reason as Kazakhstan, no democracy, no freedom, no economic gains. In Belarus, President Alexander Lukashenko got Vladimir Putin's support, while the West backed his rival, Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya. Such fault lines are emerging in most former Soviet states. Their leaders support Russia, but their people want change, and frankly, you can understand why. These people have been ruled by autocrats for nearly 100 years. First under the Soviet Union, and then by dictators like Lukashenko. They have made very little economic progress despite being geographically blessed, centrally located, good energy reserves, but no benefits. Such protests could alter the political landscape of this region. Russia fears Western influence. China is patiently waiting in the wings. And the people desperately want change. As I said at the start, political giants leave a long shadow. You can see this giant Soviet shadow over these republics. Paper democracies where dictators are elected. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.